Why do we often lose control of our emotions, even when we know better? And how can a philosophy that's over 2,000 years old help us regain that control in a world that feels more chaotic than ever? Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic thinkers, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words are more than just a reminder. They're a blueprint for emotional resilience in the face of life's challenges. Stoicism, often misunderstood as a call to suppress emotions, is actually about mastering them. It's about recognizing that while we can't control what happens to us, we can control how we respond. This ancient philosophy offers timeless tools for emotional control, resilience, and cognitive detachment skills that are not just relevant but essential in today's fast-paced, stress-filled world. In this video, we'll explore how Stoics never overreact, not because they're indifferent, but because they've learned to see the world through a lens of clarity and purpose. We'll break down the principles that allow them to remain calm under pressure, make better decisions, and maintain their inner peace, even when everything around them seems to fall apart. By the end, you'll walk away with practical strategies to apply these Stoic teachings to your own life, helping you navigate challenges with a newfound sense of control and strength. Stoics believe that overreacting stems from trying to control the uncontrollable. It's a simple yet profound idea. We often waste energy worrying about things we can't change, while neglecting the one thing we truly have power over: our own reactions. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it best when he said, "Some things are in our control and others are not." This is the heart of the Dichotomy of Control, a foundational principle in Stoicism. Think about it this way: external events like the weather, other people's opinions, or even a delayed flight are completely outside our influence. Yet, how often do we find ourselves frustrated or anxious over these very things? The Stoics argue that this misplaced focus is what leads to emotional turmoil. Instead of trying to bend the world to our will, they suggest redirecting our attention inward to the one domain where we are the ultimate authority: our thoughts, choices, and responses. Consider a modern example. You're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. The cars aren't moving, and there's nothing you can do about it. You could let frustration take over, honking the horn and stressing yourself out. But what does that achieve? The traffic still won't budge. Instead, the Stoic approach would be to recognize that the delay is outside your control, but your reaction isn't. You could use the time to listen to a podcast, practice deep breathing, or even reflect on your day. By shifting your focus, you not only maintain your peace of mind, but also turn a frustrating situation into an opportunity for growth. So here's a question to reflect on. What's something in your life that you can't control, and how might you respond to it differently if you embraced this Stoic principle? By identifying these moments and consciously choosing how to react, you take the first step toward mastering emotional control, a skill the Stoics valued above all else. Stoics teach us to see events as neutral. It's our judgments that create emotions. Think about it: an event happens and we immediately slap a label on it. Good, bad, fair, unfair. But here's the thing: events themselves are just events. They don't come with built-in meanings. It's our interpretations, our judgments, that turn them into something emotional. This is where cognitive detachment comes into play. It's the ability to step back and recognize that the power lies not in what happens to us, but in how we choose to respond. Seneca put it perfectly when he said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." What he's getting at is that so much of the pain we feel isn't from the event itself, but from the stories we tell ourselves about it. Take criticism, for example. Imagine you're at work and your boss gives you feedback that stings. Your first instinct might be to label it as bad or unfair, and suddenly you're spiraling into frustration or self-doubt. But what if instead you saw the criticism as neutral, just information, not good, not bad, just something to consider, learn from, or even discard if it doesn't serve you? That shift in perspective can change everything. The key here is to practice observing without immediately reacting. When something happens, pause, ask yourself, am I reacting to the event itself or to the story I'm telling about it? This isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about creating space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where wisdom grows, so the next time you find yourself caught up in a strong emotional reaction, take a moment to reflect. What label are you assigning to the event? Is it truly serving you, or is it adding unnecessary weight to the situation? By practicing cognitive detachment, you're not just controlling your emotions, you're reclaiming your power to choose how you engage with the world. Stoics remind us that our perspective shapes our reality. It's not the events themselves that determine how we feel, but the way we choose to see them. This simple yet profound idea is at the heart of emotional control. Imagine two people facing the same setback. One sees it as a crushing defeat, while the other views it as a chance to learn and grow. The difference lies in their perspective, and that's where the power of Stoicism comes in. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, obstacles aren't roadblocks, they're stepping stones. When we shift our perspective, we transform challenges into opportunities, and that shift alone can dramatically reduce emotional intensity. Think about a time when something didn't go as planned. Maybe a project at work fell through, or a personal goal seemed out of reach. In the moment, it's easy to feel frustrated or defeated. But what if, instead of seeing it as a failure, you saw it as a chance to refine your skills or discover a new approach? This kind of reframing doesn't just soften the emotional blow, it empowers you to move forward with clarity and purpose. For example, let's say you lost a job you loved. Instead of dwelling on the loss, you could see it as an opportunity to explore a new career path, one that aligns even more closely with your passions and strengths. By changing your perspective, you turn a moment of defeat into a catalyst for growth. So here's a question to reflect on. What's a recent challenge you faced, and how might you reframe it? Could it be a chance to build resilience, gain wisdom, or even uncover a hidden opportunity? The next time you feel the urge to overreact, pause and ask yourself, how else could I see this situation? That simple question might just change everything. Stoics practice the discipline of assent, pausing before accepting a thought as true. This simple but powerful habit is about creating a moment of space between what happens to us and how we respond. Imagine you're in a heated argument and someone says something that immediately sparks anger or frustration. Instead of reacting in the heat of the moment, the Stoic approach teaches us to take a breath and ask ourselves, is this thought truly accurate? Is this emotion justified? By pausing, we give ourselves the chance to step back and evaluate the situation with clarity, rather than being swept away by the intensity of the moment. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This quote captures the essence of the discipline of assent. It's about aligning your actions with your values, not your impulses. When we pause, we're not just stopping ourselves from overreacting, we're actively choosing how to respond in a way that reflects who we want to be. Think about it. How often do we regret our reactions because they were driven by emotions we didn't fully understand or control? This pause is our opportunity to break that cycle. Let's apply this to a real-life scenario. Imagine you're at work and a colleague criticizes your project in front of others. Your instinct might be to defend yourself or lash out. But if you pause, you might realize that their criticism, even if poorly delivered, could contain some truth, or perhaps it's more about their own frustrations than your work. By stepping back, you can respond thoughtfully, maybe even constructively instead of escalating the tension. Here's a challenge for you. The next time you feel a strong emotion rising, whether it's anger, frustration, or even excitement, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, is this thought or feeling something I want to act on? Does it align with the person I strive to be? That small moment of reflection can make all the difference. It's not about suppressing emotions, but about understanding them and choosing how to act with intention. This is the heart of the discipline of Assent, and it's a skill that grows stronger with practice. Stoics believe that living virtuously is the key to emotional stability. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies the idea that virtues like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control are the foundation of a well-lived life. These aren't just abstract ideals, they're practical tools that help us navigate the chaos of everyday emotions. Take wisdom, for example. It's not about knowing everything, but about understanding what's within our control and what isn't. When we act with wisdom, we respond to situations thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Seneca once said, "Virtue is nothing else than right reason." In other words, virtue is about aligning our actions with what's rational and true, rather than being swept away by fleeting emotions. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. The frustration builds and anger starts to bubble up. In that moment, wisdom reminds you that honking your horn or yelling won't change the situation. Instead, you choose patience. You take a deep breath, accept the delay, and focus on what you can control, your mindset and how you'll handle the meeting once you arrive. This is virtue in action, choosing the higher path even when emotions push you toward the easier, reactive one. Courage plays a role here too. It's not just about facing physical danger, but about confronting our own emotional triggers. It takes courage to stay calm when everything inside you wants to lash out. And justice, that's about treating others with fairness and compassion, even when they don't seem to deserve it. Together, these virtues form a kind of inner compass, guiding us toward emotional balance and resilience. So, let's pause for a moment. Think about a virtue you'd like to strengthen in your own life. Is it patience, courage, maybe it's self-control? Whatever it is, consider how practicing that virtue could transform the way you handle challenging situations. The Stoics remind us that emotional control isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about channeling them through the lens of virtue, so we can respond with clarity and purpose. Stoics prepare for adversity by imagining the worst-case scenario, a practice known as Premeditatio Malorum. At first glance, this might sound pessimistic, but it's far from it. Instead, it's a powerful tool for building resilience and emotional control. By envisioning potential challenges or setbacks, we train our minds to face them calmly when they arise, rather than being caught off guard and overwhelmed by emotion. Seneca once said, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect." In other words, surprises hit harder than the challenges we've already prepared for. Think about it this way. If you're heading into a tough conversation, like asking for a raise or resolving a conflict, you might feel anxious or even dread the possibility of things going wrong. But what if you took a moment to imagine the worst-case scenario beforehand? What if the conversation doesn't go as planned? What if the other person reacts poorly? By mentally walking through these possibilities, you're not inviting negativity. You're building a buffer against fear and anxiety. You're giving yourself the chance to think clearly about how you'd respond, so you're not blindsided by emotion in the moment. This practice isn't about dwelling on doom and gloom, it's about preparation. It's about realizing that life will throw challenges your way, and you have the ability to face them with clarity and composure. So take a moment to reflect. What's one upcoming challenge you're facing? How might you apply Premeditatio Malorum to prepare for it? Whether it's a difficult conversation, a big decision, or an unexpected setback, this Stoic practice can help you approach it with a steadier mind and a stronger sense of control. Stoics emphasize the power of living in the present moment. It's not just about being physically here, it's about fully engaging with what's happening right now, without letting the weight of the past or the uncertainty of the future pull you away. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Confine yourself to the present," a simple yet profound reminder that the only moment we truly have control over is the one we're in. When we focus on the now, we strip away the layers of regret about what's already happened and the fear of what might come next. This clarity allows us to respond to situations with calm and intention, rather than reacting impulsively out of emotion. Think about a stressful moment, maybe a heated argument or a sudden setback at work. When we're caught up in our emotions, it's easy to spiral into frustration or anger. But by grounding ourselves in the present, we can pause, take a breath, and assess the situation for what it is, not what we fear it might become. This isn't about ignoring problems, it's about addressing them with a clear mind. For instance, imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. Instead of letting frustration take over, you focus on what you can control, your breathing, your attitude, and how you'll handle the situation when you arrive. This shift in perspective can transform how you experience challenges. So, how can you start practicing this kind of presence? Begin by noticing when your mind starts to wander into the past or future. Gently guide it back to the present, using your senses to anchor yourself. What do you see, hear, or feel right now? Over time, this practice builds a habit of mindfulness, helping you stay steady even when life feels chaotic. What's one moment today where you can pause and truly be present? It might feel small, but these moments add up, shaping how you navigate the world with greater calm and purpose. Stoics use gratitude to shift their focus from what's lacking to what's abundant. This simple yet profound practice is a cornerstone of emotional balance, helping them navigate life's challenges with a sense of calm and perspective. When we focus on what we don't have, it's easy to feel frustrated, envious, or even resentful. But gratitude redirects our attention to the gifts already present in our lives, no matter how small they may seem. It's not about ignoring hardship, it's about reframing it. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This mindset doesn't just soften the blow of disappointment, it transforms how we experience life altogether. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. Instead of spiraling into anger, what if you took a moment to appreciate the fact that you have a car, a job to go to, or even the opportunity to listen to your favorite podcast while you wait? Gratitude turns frustration into a moment of reflection and peace. Here's a practical way to apply this. Think of a time when you faced a setback. Maybe you didn't get the promotion you wanted, or a project didn't go as planned. Instead of dwelling on the disappointment, try listing 3 things you're grateful for in that situation. Perhaps the experience taught you resilience, or it opened the door to a new opportunity you hadn't considered. Gratitude doesn't erase the difficulty, but it gives you the tools to see it in a new light. So take a moment right now. What are 3 things you're grateful for today? It could be something as simple as a warm cup of coffee, a kind word from a friend, or even the chance to learn something new. When you practice gratitude, you train your mind to focus on what's within your control, your perspective, and that's where true emotional freedom begins. Stoics believe that self-reflection is the key to understanding our emotions. By taking the time to look inward, we can untangle the reasons behind our reactions and begin to cultivate a sense of emotional mastery. This practice isn't about harshly judging ourselves or dwelling on mistakes. It's about observing, learning, and growing. One of the most powerful tools the Stoics used for this was journaling. They would sit down at the end of the day, often before sleep, and carefully review their thoughts, actions, and feelings. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: assess your day before you sleep. This simple yet profound habit allows us to step back and see our emotions from a distance, rather than being swept away by them in the moment. Imagine a day where you felt frustrated or upset. Maybe someone cut you off in traffic, or a colleague made a comment that rubbed you the wrong way. In the heat of the moment, those emotions might have felt overwhelming. But by reflecting later, you can ask yourself, why did that situation bother me so much? Was my reaction proportional to what actually happened? This kind of introspection helps us identify patterns in our emotional responses and recognize where we might be giving too much power to external events. Over time, this practice builds resilience and clarity, allowing us to respond rather than react. Here's a practical way to start. Tonight, take just 5 minutes to reflect on your day. Think about the moments when you felt strong emotions, whether it was joy, anger, or something in between. Ask yourself what triggered those feelings and whether your response aligned with your values. This small act of self-reflection can be transformative, helping you gain insight into your emotional landscape and empowering you to handle future challenges with greater calm and perspective. Stoics see resilience as the ability to bounce back from adversity, not just once but repeatedly without losing composure. It's about transforming setbacks into stepping stones, a core principle that helps us navigate life's inevitable ups and downs. Resilience, in the Stoic sense, isn't about avoiding pain or pretending challenges don't exist. Instead, it's about facing them head-on with clarity and courage, knowing that every obstacle carries the potential for growth. Marcus Aurelius put it succinctly, "The obstacle is the way." These words remind us that the very things that block our path can become the tools we use to forge a stronger, wiser version of ourselves. Think about a time when you faced a personal failure, maybe a missed opportunity, a rejection, or a mistake that felt insurmountable at the time. How did you respond? Did you let it define you, or did you use it as a lesson? Stoics would argue that resilience isn't just about enduring hardship, it's about learning to see the value in it. When we reframe challenges as opportunities to practice patience, adaptability, and perseverance, we reduce their emotional weight. Instead of being crushed by setbacks, we become more adept at navigating them, building a kind of emotional armor that protects us without hardening our hearts. This mindset doesn't mean ignoring the difficulty of a situation. It means acknowledging the struggle while choosing to focus on what we can control: our thoughts, actions, and responses. For instance, imagine someone who loses their job unexpectedly. A Stoic approach wouldn't involve denying the frustration or fear that comes with such a loss. Instead, it would involve asking, what can I do now? How can I use this experience to grow? By shifting focus from what's lost to what's possible, resilience becomes a practice, not just a trait. Take a moment to reflect on a challenge you've overcome in the past. What did you learn from it? How did it shape you? Resilience isn't something we're born with, it's something we cultivate through experience and reflection. And the more we practice this Stoic approach, the better we become at handling whatever life throws our way. It's not about avoiding the storm, it's about learning to dance in the rain. Stoics teach us to embrace everything that happens, good or bad. This is the heart of a powerful principle called Ammaphati, a Latin phrase meaning love of fate. It's not about passively resigning to life's challenges, but actively choosing to see every event, whether joyful or painful, as an essential part of our journey. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. You can fight against the wind, or you can lean into it, finding strength in its force. Ammaphati is about leaning in, about accepting what life gives you and finding meaning in it, no matter how unexpected or difficult it may seem. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do." This might sound counterintuitive at first. After all, don't we all want life to go our way? But what Epictetus is pointing to is the freedom that comes from letting go of resistance. When we stop fighting against what we can't control, we open ourselves to a deeper sense of peace. Emotional turmoil often arises not from the events themselves, but from our refusal to accept them. Ammaphati invites us to transform that resistance into acceptance and even gratitude. Think about a time when something didn't go as planned. Maybe you missed an important opportunity or faced an unexpected setback. At first, it might have felt like a failure, but what if you reframed it as a chance to grow, to learn, or to redirect your path? That's the power of Ammaphati. It's not about pretending everything is perfect, but about finding value in the imperfect. For instance, losing a job can feel devastating, but it might also lead to discovering a new passion or pursuing a long-forgotten dream. By embracing the situation, you stop seeing it as a loss and start seeing it as a stepping stone. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one recent disappointment or challenge you faced? How might you begin to see it through the lens of Ammaphati? How could accepting it, even loving it, change the way you move forward? The Stoics remind us that life's greatest lessons often come wrapped in adversity. By loving our fate, we don't just endure life, we thrive in it. Stoics believe that humility is the antidote to pride and anger. At its core, humility is about recognizing your limitations and understanding that you don't have all the answers. This mindset acts as a powerful counterbalance to the ego, which often pushes us to react impulsively when we feel slighted or challenged. When you approach life with humility, you're less likely to take things personally, and that's where emotional control begins. Consider this insight from Seneca: "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity." What he's really saying is that challenges are inevitable, and how we respond to them defines our character. Humility allows us to see adversity not as a personal attack, but as an opportunity to grow. It shifts the focus from defending our ego to learning from the situation. For instance, imagine someone criticizes your work. The ego-driven reaction might be to lash out, defend yourself, or dismiss the feedback altogether. But humility opens the door to a different response. It allows you to listen, reflect, and ask yourself, is there truth in this critique? Can I use this to improve? This isn't about diminishing your worth or accepting unfair treatment. It's about grounding yourself in a realistic understanding of who you are, strengths and weaknesses alike. When you embrace humility, you stop seeing every critique as a threat and start seeing it as a chance to refine yourself. Think about a time when humility helped you navigate a difficult moment. Maybe it was a disagreement where you chose to listen instead of argue, or perhaps it was a failure you accepted with grace. In those moments, humility didn't just keep your emotions in check, it likely strengthened your relationships and deepened your self-awareness. That's the power of this Stoic virtue. It doesn't just prevent overreactions, it transforms how you engage with the world. Stoics remind us of our mortality to keep life in perspective. This practice, known as Memento Mori, isn't meant to be morbid or depressing, it's a tool for clarity. By reflecting on the fact that our time is limited, we're forced to confront what truly matters. It's a way of cutting through the noise of daily distractions and focusing on what's essential. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. These words serve as a powerful reminder that life is fleeting, and the way we choose to spend our time and energy should reflect that truth. When we internalize this perspective, the small annoyances that often consume us start to lose their grip. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, feeling frustrated and impatient. But then you pause and remind yourself of your mortality. Suddenly, the traffic doesn't seem so important. It's just a temporary inconvenience in the grand scheme of things. This shift in thinking doesn't mean ignoring life's challenges. It means prioritizing what truly deserves your emotional energy. By letting go of the trivial, you create space for what's meaningful. Think about your own life for a moment. What are the things that genuinely matter to you? The relationships you cherish, the goals you're working toward, the moments of joy and connection. These are the things worth your focus. The practice of Memento Mori helps us strip away the distractions and align our actions with our deeper values. It's not about living in fear of death, but about living with intention and purpose. When you embrace this mindset, emotional control becomes a natural byproduct. You stop sweating the small stuff and start investing in what truly enriches your life. Stoics value silence as a tool for emotional mastery. In moments of tension or conflict, staying silent isn't a sign of weakness. It's a deliberate choice to avoid overreacting. By holding back impulsive words, we give ourselves the space to think clearly and respond with intention, rather than being swept away by emotion. As Epictetus wisely said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. This simple yet profound idea reminds us that silence is not just the absence of speech. It's an active practice of self-control and observation. Imagine you're in a heated argument. Emotions are high, and every word feels like it could tip the scales further. In that moment, choosing silence allows you to step back, assess the situation, and avoid saying something you might regret later. It's not about suppressing your feelings, it's about giving yourself the time to process them. Silence becomes a shield, protecting you from the chaos of reactive emotions and giving you the clarity to act with wisdom. The next time you find yourself in a conflict, try this. Instead of rushing to defend yourself or counter the other person's words, pause. Take a deep breath and let the silence do the work. Notice how it shifts the dynamic, giving both you and the other person a moment to reflect. This small act of restraint can transform a potential confrontation into an opportunity for understanding. So, what would happen if you chose silence in your next disagreement? How might it change the way you communicate and ultimately the way you feel? Stoics believe that reason is the key to emotional control. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about using rational thinking to navigate them. For the Stoics, reason is like a steady hand on the wheel, steering us through the storm of emotions that life throws our way. Without it, we're at the mercy of every impulse, every fleeting feeling that arises. But with reason, we gain the power to pause, reflect, and choose how we respond. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: reason is the greatest good and the lack of it the greatest evil. What he's saying is that reason isn't just a tool, it's the foundation of a well-lived life. When we let emotions take over unchecked, we risk making decisions we'll regret. But when we engage our rational mind, we can step back and ask, is this reaction helpful? Is it aligned with my values? Is it serving me, or is it leading me astray? Let's take anger as an example. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. Your immediate reaction might be frustration or even rage. But if you pause and apply reason, you might ask yourself, does this person's action truly harm me? Is my anger solving anything, or is it just making me feel worse? By stepping back and analyzing the situation logically, you can diffuse the emotional charge and respond in a way that's calm and constructive. This doesn't mean you become emotionless. Stoicism isn't about turning yourself into a cold, unfeeling robot. It's about recognizing that emotions are natural, but they don't have to control you. Reason gives you the space to process your feelings without letting them dictate your actions. Think about a situation in your own life where emotions might have gotten the better of you. What would it look like to approach that moment with reason instead? How might your perspective shift if you pause to reflect before reacting? By practicing this kind of mindful reasoning, you can start to build a stronger sense of emotional control, one thoughtful decision at a time. Stoics practice minimalism to focus on what truly matters. This isn't about owning fewer possessions, though that can be part of it. Stoic minimalism is about stripping away the unnecessary, both physical and mental, so we can direct our energy toward what's essential. Think about it. When your life is cluttered with distractions, obligations, and excess, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. That's when emotions like frustration, anxiety, or anger tend to flare up. But by simplifying, we create space for clarity and calm. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life." This simple yet profound statement reminds us that happiness isn't found in accumulating more, but in appreciating what we already have. When we pare down our lives to the essentials, we remove the triggers that often lead to overreactions. Imagine a schedule packed with meetings, errands, and social commitments. It's no wonder we feel stretched thin and reactive. But what if you cancelled one unnecessary obligation? What if you carved out even 30 minutes of quiet time to reflect or simply breathe? That small act of simplification can make a world of difference. Take a moment to consider your own life. Is there an area where you feel weighed down, whether it's a cluttered space, a demanding routine, or even a toxic relationship? Identifying one thing you can let go of is the first step toward emotional freedom. When we practice minimalism, we're not just decluttering our surroundings, we're decluttering our mind. And in that space, we find the resilience to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Stoics believe that community helps us stay grounded. While much of Stoicism emphasizes self-mastery and personal responsibility, it also recognizes the importance of connection with others. A strong community provides a network of shared wisdom and emotional support, helping us navigate life's challenges without feeling isolated. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself," reminding us that freedom comes from self-control. But even as we strive for mastery over our own emotions, we don't have to face that journey alone. Think about it. When you're overwhelmed, who do you turn to? A trusted friend, a mentor, or perhaps a family member? Stoics understood that leaning on others isn't a sign of weakness, but a practical way to gain perspective and clarity. For example, imagine you're struggling with a difficult decision. Instead of spiraling into overthinking, you reach out to someone you trust. Their advice might not solve the problem outright, but it can help you see the situation more clearly and respond with calm intention. This is where the Stoic concept of community shines. It's not about depending on others to fix your problems, but about creating a space where mutual respect and shared insights foster emotional resilience. Who in your life helps you stay grounded? Take a moment to reflect on the people who offer you support, and consider how their presence shapes your ability to handle life's ups and downs. Building and nurturing these connections isn't just a Stoic practice, it's a timeless way to strengthen your emotional foundation. Stoics strive for equanimity, balance in the face of life's ups and downs. This principle is about maintaining a steady mind no matter what's happening around you. Think of it like the eye of a storm. While chaos swirls outside, there's a calm center that remains undisturbed. For the Stoics, this wasn't just a lofty ideal, it was a practical tool for navigating life's unpredictability. They believed that emotional extremes, whether it's overwhelming joy or crushing despair, cloud our judgment and pull us away from rational decision-making. Equanimity, then, is the antidote to this turbulence. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most influential thinkers, captured this idea perfectly when he said, A wise man is neither raised up by prosperity nor cast down by adversity. In other words, external events shouldn't dictate our inner state. Whether you're facing a windfall or a setback, the goal is to remain grounded, to see both as temporary and not let them define your emotions. This isn't about suppressing feelings, but rather about not letting them control you. Imagine you're in the middle of a crisis, a sudden job loss, a heated argument, or even a global event that shakes your sense of security. The natural reaction might be panic or frustration, but equanimity asks you to pause. It's about stepping back, taking a deep breath, and asking, what's within my control here? By focusing on your response rather than the event itself, you regain agency. This shift in perspective can transform how you handle challenges, turning moments of chaos into opportunities for growth. So, how can you start practicing this in your own life? The next time you face a challenge, big or small, try this. Pause before reacting. Take a moment to observe your emotions without letting them take the wheel. Ask yourself, is this situation truly as urgent or catastrophic as it feels? Often, you'll find that the initial emotional spike fades, leaving room for clarity and thoughtful action. Equanimity isn't about being emotionless, it's about being free from the grip of those emotions. And with practice, it becomes a powerful way to live with greater peace and purpose. Stoics teach us to accept what we cannot change. This principle is at the heart of emotional control. When we resist reality, we create unnecessary suffering. Acceptance, on the other hand, allows us to let go of what's beyond our control and focus our energy on what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." This isn't about giving up or being passive. It's about recognizing the limits of our influence and choosing peace over frustration. Think about it this way: when you're stuck in traffic, you have two choices. You can either rage against the delay, honking your horn and stressing yourself out, or you can accept that this is the reality of the moment. The traffic won't disappear because you're upset, but your emotional state can change if you choose acceptance. This shift in mindset doesn't just apply to traffic, it's a tool for life. Whether it's a missed opportunity, a personal limitation, or an unexpected setback, acceptance helps us move forward without being weighed down by resistance. Let's take a practical example. Imagine someone who struggles with public speaking. They might feel embarrassed or frustrated by their fear, but instead of fighting it, they could accept it as part of who they are right now. This acceptance doesn't mean they stop trying to improve. It means they stop beating themselves up for feeling nervous. Over time, this mindset can reduce the emotional pain associated with the fear and create space for growth. So, what's something in your life that you need to accept? Maybe it's a situation you can't change or a trait you wish were different. Take a moment to reflect on it. How might acceptance, not resignation, but a calm acknowledgement of reality, help you move forward with greater ease and less emotional turmoil? Stoics start each day by preparing for challenges. They don't wait for life to throw problems their way. Instead, they anticipate obstacles and mentally rehearse how they'll respond. This practice isn't about expecting the worst, but about building emotional resilience so that no matter what comes, they remain steady and composed. Think of it like a mental workout each morning. You're strengthening your ability to handle stress, disappointment, and even chaos. As Epictetus once said, begin each day by telling yourself, "Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." This isn't pessimistic, it's practical. By acknowledging these possibilities, you're less likely to be caught off guard when they happen. So, how does this look in real life? Imagine waking up and taking a few moments to reflect on your intentions for the day. You might remind yourself, "Today, I'll focus on staying calm, even if things don't go as planned." Or I'll approach every interaction with patience, no matter how difficult the person might be. This isn't just wishful thinking, it's a conscious decision to align your mindset with your values. It's about setting the tone for how you want to show up, regardless of external circumstances. What's powerful about this practice is that it shifts your focus from reacting to life to actively shaping your response. Instead of being swept away by emotions, you're in the driver's seat, choosing how to engage with whatever comes your way. And the more you do this, the stronger your emotional resilience becomes. It's like building a mental shield, not to block out the world, but to navigate it with clarity and purpose. Now consider this. What would your day look like if you started it with a moment of intentional preparation? What small, consistent steps could you take to build your own emotional resilience? Maybe it's a quiet moment of reflection, a short journal entry, or even a mental reminder of your Stoic principles. The key is to make it a habit, something you do without hesitation, because that's where the real transformation begins. Stoics believe that forgiveness frees us from resentment. It's not about excusing someone's behavior or pretending the hurt didn't happen. It's about releasing the emotional weight that keeps us tied to the past. When we hold on to anger, it's like carrying a heavy burden everywhere we go. But here's the thing, that burden doesn't punish the person who wronged us. It only weighs us down, draining our energy and clouding our judgment. Seneca once said, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." And he's right. Resentment doesn't harm the other person, it harms us. Think about a time when someone hurt you. Maybe it was a betrayal, a harsh word, or an unfair decision. At first, the anger might feel justified, even empowering. But over time, that anger can turn into bitterness, and bitterness can poison your outlook on life. Stoicism teaches us to rise above this cycle. Forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you. It's a way to reclaim your peace and move forward without being chained to the past. Take, for example, a situation where a friend betrayed your trust. You could spend years replaying the event in your mind, letting the anger fester. Or you could choose to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free from the emotional toll. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to trust them again or even continue the relationship. It simply means you're choosing to let go of the resentment so it no longer controls you. So here's a question to reflect on. Is there someone in your life you need to forgive, not for their sake, but for yours? What would it feel like to release that anger and move forward with a lighter heart? Stoicism reminds us that forgiveness isn't a sign of weakness, it's a powerful act of self-liberation. To truly master emotional control, we've explored a few key Stoic principles that can transform how we respond to life's challenges. First, there's the dichotomy of control, understanding what's within our power and what isn't. This simple yet profound idea helps us stop wasting energy on things we can't change and instead focus on what we can influence. Then there's cognitive detachment, the practice of stepping back from our emotions to observe them without letting them dictate our actions. And finally, resilience, the ability to endure hardship with grace, knowing that adversity is often the forge where strength is built. These principles aren't just ideas to think about, they're tools to practice. Emotional control isn't something you achieve overnight. It's a skill you develop over time, like building a muscle. Every time you choose not to overreact, every moment you pause and reflect instead of impulsively responding, you're strengthening that muscle. As Marcus Aurelius once said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What he meant is that our inner world shapes our outer reality. If we fill our minds with calm, rational, and intentional thoughts, our actions will naturally follow suit. Over time, this practice becomes second nature, and emotional control becomes less of a struggle and more of a way of life. So, how can you start applying these principles today? Think about a recent situation where you felt overwhelmed or frustrated. What would it look like to approach it with the Stoic mindset? How might you reframe your thoughts or redirect your energy? Small, consistent steps can lead to profound changes. If you found this video helpful, let us know in the comments how you plan to use Stoic principles in your life. And if you're hungry for more insights like this, don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey of growth and self-mastery. Remember, the path to emotional control isn't about perfection, it's about progress, one thoughtful moment at a time.